Lucas Glover, your program chair. I'm very excited today to introduce our speaker. We're going to have Seth Windelhake be our presenter. He is the education and volunteer specialist with Fernhill Wetlands, and he's going to present a little bit about the wetlands. Before he served in that role, he was the education coordinator with the Tualatin River National Wildlife Refuge, which I've driven past several times at the meeting to also visit. And before that, he has experience teaching summer camps at the Oregon Zoo. He has a degree in cultural anthropology and political science from the prestigious University of Oregon. And his favorite animals are rough-skinned newts and Asian elephants. He's an avid trail runner and enjoys local natural areas. Please join me in giving a warm Rotary welcome to Seth Windelhake.
Thank you very much for that introduction. I feel like I have this PowerPoint. I feel like lots of times when I talk about Fernhill, it's more organically than when I'm out there on the trail. So I'm going to talk a little bit about clean water services a bit. I think I'm checking to see what you all know about Fernhill and see and then talk along with that. So I work at Clean Water Services. I started about 3 months before the pandemic, so I'm in here a little bit over 3 years. My position is I'm the education volunteer specialist. So I do a lot of our student education. We work at Cal a lot. Jonathan and Jane bring other students for part of their science curriculum. We do water quality testing and things like that. So it's so close by. It's a really great opportunity to get the students out and like hands-on kind of. I was doing an internship last spring, like for with that kind of stuff. So working in the community, lots of education work. It's really interesting. I started right before the pandemic, and so like half my job is going to schools and doing presentations, and I was like, stop. So it's been really fun getting back into it. Field trips coming back out, doing engage with students and like our really science curriculum, things like that, while being out in nature and understanding what we're doing. So a little bit about clean water services before, and even like the reason we invested in Fernhill. So Friday is our birthday. It's our 53rd birthday of being an organization. The reason Clean Water Services was created is that in 53 years ago, I can do math there, the state of Oregon put a building moratorium on Washington County because the quality of water at the Twelfth River was so low. And so there's really this permitting process created through the EPA and DEQ that those bond areas was put, and the voters of Washington County voted to create Clean Water Services. And so there were 23 separate wastewater treatment facilities throughout the county operating until that point, and we consolidated it into 4 of them. And so we're really responsible for the health and the quality of the water of the Twelfth River. So anything that touches water and the river, both the wastewater you flush down to inside your house, or the storm water that runs down the roof of your house and goes down the storm drain that ends up in the nearest Green River. We're the ones that are responsible for making sure that the river is meeting temperature, contaminants, all those parameters are set by DEQ. So those are really like the reasons we're here. We're here to do a good job. We love the river, but also like there's a permit that says the river needs to get this level of this temperature. So Fernhill, why we created Fernhill, why we invested money in Fernhill. How many of you have been to Fernhill before? All right, cool. How many of you remember before we started doing any hands-on work there? It was okay. I love when you look on Google Maps, it still says it's lagoon. Because yes, like before and after pictures, there is just a lagoon out there with basically paved trails and gravel trails around the edge of it. So in about 13 years ago, we started doing some enhancement work. So the idea of Fernhill, we have temperature requirements. So the water, think about you're using water to, like inside your house, that wastewater's going down, you're taking showers, dishwasher, washing machine, that water is warm. That water's going down the drain. We don't really have a process in a hard treatment process to cool that water down really efficiently. And so that water, we clean it and we're putting it back into the Twelfth River. During the summertime, over 60% of the water that's in the Twelfth River is either water that we clean and put back in the river, or that we release from any kind of lake. So it's really important having that temperature. And so something that we came up with, an idea, we started testing with this idea called a natural treatment system. So we were using Fernhill. Someone, when I came in here, they're like, I love that park. I was like, it's actually a treatment facility. So all those plants that we've installed out there, we've installed billions of seeds, thousands and thousands of native plants. And the process is to cool that water down. So it takes, anyone have an idea how long it takes us when we get wastewater down the sewer from your house to our facility? Do you know how to get how long it takes us to treat it from coming into our facility to when it's ready to go back out?
30 days.
3 days? You know, yes, it's here.
2 days.
A lot less.
72.
24 hours. So yeah. So that is the process we're going through. We're using it's called our conventional process. So if you ever get a chance in the summertime, sometimes we do treatment facility tours. It's great to go through there. It's like we're using gravity, we're using microorganisms, all this to help us with really going out and clean out water. So it takes about 24 hours to go through the treatment facility for growth. And then going to the wetlands at Fernhill takes about 4 to 5 days. And so really the goal there is have a shade cover. So all those plants you see out there, the shrubs, those trees, they are covering and cooling the water down. And so our goal is to have 90% shade cover as that water is slowly flowing through the wetlands and it's cooling down. So during the summertime, our permit requirement is between May and October is when we're running the water through there. And it is really like the water goes through and there's something called evapotranspiration, which is where the plants suck up the water and they sweat it out. And that helps cool it down. During the nighttime, the ambient temperature helps cool that water. And so it's flowing through and just the shade from leaves. And so that process helps cool water enough to be able to put it into the river. Which cold water is better for fish. There's more dissolved oxygen in cold water. It's a lot healthier for fish, wildlife, all kinds of animals that need the water to survive and be healthy. So that's a really quick rundown of why we created Fernhill. And so that's our primary focus was to meet these permit requirements. We spent about $18 million on the process of creating the trails, the parking lot, those buildings that are out there, all those improvements, the plants out there, to add on to the conventional process to do that tertiary treatment. It would cost about $30 million to create a concrete structure that did the same thing that those 90 acres was doing. So it's a really great research opportunity. We're doing lots of things out there that sometimes they work and sometimes they don't work as well as we thought. And so it's a way that we're continually testing things and again and trying new opportunities out there. Let me think about what else. I feel like I was thinking about this this morning. I feel like I could do like 5 different presentations. There's so many other things that we're touching on at Fernhill that relate to the community and what's happening. So the things that really relate to me, we've been working with the Forest Grove School District that last year and really working on why we have school field trips that we aligned with their STEM curriculum. So it's really using science standards. And so it's really easy for teachers to justify coming out to the wetlands, not just a fun field trip to go out and convert, but actually science and relates back to it. There's looking at pollinators, there's plants there, there's the different kinds of birds, the trees, the water cycle, all of that is touched on at Fernhill. One of the things that we did is we provide funding for buses. So the hospital for some schools, but if schools come out for visits, we provide reimbursement for those bus trips, you know, them outside and learn about what we're doing as much as possible. One of those really important things, especially for student education, is the idea that they can help us in that water quality. So stormwater, you all seen those breaks inside of the road, storm drains. Those here in Washington County, they drain to the nearest stream or river. They don't come to us and get treated before it goes to the river. And so anything that you do in your yard, so you are applying fertilizer, pesticides, herbicides, things like that. If it's over applied and it rains, that's going to wash down the drain and end up in the creek, in Gale Creek, which is all the river. So those are all things that you and students can do that you touch like every single day. So that's the education side of things. We do most of the field trips are in the springtime out there. So It's kind of like right now, it's kind of like a tiny, ready for things time. May is like not there yet. So we have our visitor station out there that we open that talks a little bit more about the processes that the water goes through, because well, then we out on the trail, you're like, cool, there's birds, there's plants, and we want to talk about that. The process that we go through as far as treating that water. So, there's how many other research things? I think, and I was about to ask those questions. I think let's just go with that, because I feel like you've all been there. You may have questions, and there's so many things going on. Yeah.
So if the surface water in our homes is draining off and going straight to the Tualatin, then does the Fernhill Education Center hold any kind of classes or workshops to help homeowners do a better job of putting cleaner water into the stream?
Yes. So we're not really offering a lot. So our focus as far as Fernhill is on our treatment process and the stormwater prevention part that you're talking about there. So that is half of the River Ranger program that I present to 4th grade and sometimes 3rd and 5th grade schools around our district. Our website, Fernhill website, has lots of information for homeowners, for being along the stream, for pesticide reduction, for roof cleaning. This is the thing that we've had come up this year is there's some chemicals that roof cleaners use that it's not aluminum, it's something else that actually when it rains it runs off and they've got spikes and that chemical in your time. So yeah, our website has lots of information related to homeowner resources as far as homeowner.
Kind of a similar vein, I had some antifreeze I needed to get rid of. And I read online that I could just flush that down the toilet because the water treatment facilities would process it. And I didn't do that, but I thought, is there information out there about what I should or should not be flushing? Or are there other household things that are appropriate to flush? Or is the answer there cold no?
There are 3 things that are appropriate to flush. They all start with P's. Pee, poop, and toilet. And also vomit diarrhea, those are fine, but yeah. That's all.
So toward the Hillsborough facility, what's the difference between what happens at Fernhill and what happens at Hillsborough?
Yeah, so the Hillsborough facility, the one that's at Jackson Bottom, or Rock Creek, the larger one that's next to Bridge Park.
Oh, that one.
That one. Okay.
Yes.
So that's it. So we have 4 facilities. We have 2. So we treat about 65 million gallons of water every single day. Our 4th grade facility treats about 5 million gallons of water per day. And so the one we have in Hillsborough and the one we have in Tiger are a lot more, like 25 to 30 million gallons a day. And they have that tertiary treatment. And so they have that extended process where it's going through more, water's going through more treatment at those facilities before it goes out into the river. So that's where at 4th Row, we really have the opportunity to get the possibility of either expanding the facility to a lot larger and adding that mechanical conventional process or adding a natural treatment system. And so what we're doing with the natural treatment system, we're pulling out some more ammonia, some other chemicals, some minerals and things like that, and then really managing the temperature. Temperature is the main thing in that process. Yeah.
What kind of impact has this had on the Pacific Flyway and the bird ecosystem?
Oh, yeah, it does. It's really great. So we actually have worked with Audubon Society of Portland doing surveys. They have data from before we did our enhanced work, and then they've done intensive data afterwards too. They just last year concluded that survey and gave us a really detailed report. And the variety and abundance of birds that are using Fernhill is always been great for bird location. But the variety and variety has just expanded exponentially. There's some birds, for example, gulls that like open water, like seagulls, they actually kind of got down a little bit. But a lot of other birds like marsh birds, and shorebirds like rails, soras, blackbirds, red-winged blackbirds, population just exploded having that native habitat there. So yeah, we have actually, it was one of those things that we knew was going to be a lot better for bird habitat, but we want to have our data to back up and say, yes, we invested this money in this, it's meeting this permanent fire, and it has great habitat for so many more bird species that are used in the process.
Are the eagles still out there?
There are eagles out there, they're not nesting at Fernhill, they're nesting in property a little bit further up the river. There's I think it's on my property. So, but they're on a regular basis. Yeah.
Two questions. What's your target temperature for discharge water? And second one is name a successful experiment you did and an unsuccessful experiment.
All right, so the target temperature, so from our current requirement is 25 degrees Celsius, which is like 77 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the maximum that the water can be 82 releases there. Our permit goes from May to October. So outside of that time, there's enough water in the river that it diffuses in temperatures above that. So between May and October, it helps that temperature requirement. With our permit that we had until this year, if at 80 point it reached above that 25 degrees Celsius, we had to close off for an hour and staff that water up. We can't discharge it for to send it to our rock treatment facility that has a tertiary treatment. We have pipes. We have 800 miles of pipe that are under the county that we maintain, so we can move water from Fordsboro to Hillsborough and back and forth when we need to. I think successful wise, just the fact that Fernhill has worked that is cooling water, that is something that like I'm not large in scale. So that is something that was really a test. I think all the data said it was going to work, and it actually is working. A really interesting one that I get lots of questions about that didn't work was we were trying to do some floating islands. And so if you've been to Fernhill, right by the parking lot, there's like those little ponds and they have kind of floating islands in the middle of them. And so we did a process, we were like, we have these floating islands with some wetland plants in there, we could cover up open areas in water, and it'll shape the water to pull it down, and those plants will pull out nutrients. And it seemed like on paper like a really good idea, but when we ran through the test, it just wasn't working to scale. So it worked as a model at a very small size, but as far as to do 5 acres cover that, it just wasn't very practical. So we tried once, we did another version, a smaller version of it, a second time, and I got the same results. And so it was one of those things that we tried it, and we were like, it seems really good, but it just wasn't on the scale that we needed to work. It wasn't working. Yeah, so that's one of those things I love about working within our services is we try things, and there's this very like data driven, come up with ideas, make sure that the thing will work, and if it doesn't work, okay, sounds cool, but we're really working at trying those things, working with nature to enhance, be able to meet our permit requirements. So I had another question. Yeah.
Yeah, just a follow-up question on John's question. So how often does it happen that it gets above 77 degrees and you cannot discharge it?
So do you remember was it last summer before when we had that heat dome that it was like if it gets above 100 degrees, like we're counting on evening temperatures cooling down and that helping cool water is flowing through. So yeah, if it's above 100 degrees, all the shade, all the vapor transpiration is not going to cool that water down that much. So that's where it's part of that process. At that point, we close it and we're sending that water to the rock treatment facility. So yeah, there's usually a few days in summer where that happens. With our new permit we have, it's more of an average. It's more of we're under, it's not as much of a hard stop at 25 degrees Celsius.
It's been replicated in place else.
Yes, there's a number of places that are using an natural treatment system. We are really lucky here in Fordsboro about having the space to do it. A lot of other spaces, for example, our rock treatment facility in Hillsborough, we don't have the space to put in the natural treatment system of wetlands next to it. There's development all around it. And so there's a number of other cities, a lot of other smaller places, Frankville, LeGrand are using natural treatment systems to help develop water process. So it is definitely, we just had a group of officials from Laos come over, and this would be a really appropriate technology to use for their water treatment systems. So yeah, there's definitely, that's being replicated as far as like having space, but everything can be done really perfectly here at our Fordsboro facility. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask a little bit more about the runoff from neighborhoods, because I know over the last few decades, developers have been asked to build catch basins to catch all that runoff, to slow the speed of it, or travel if it didn't tend to the Tualatin or Gales Creek. I just wondered, could you explain a little bit more about how those actually work? Do they work in conjunction with Fernhill, or is that something aside?
Yes. Those are rules. Those aren't just, they're not just asked, like they have to, what do you call those water quality facilities? Before my work, I knew it's like bios, but here they're a water quality facility, so they are cleaning water, they're slowing the water down. And they're cleaning it. So it's one of those things that we think about contaminants that may be on the road, they're going to wash into there first. And the roots of the plants and that soil will help slow down and break apart those particles before they get on the river. So that's really the idea, is like when there's slow down flooding, to slow down those contaminants and be able to use like have those roots fixing things. So yeah, no, those water quality facilities are really important, and they work throughout the system as far as slowing the water down. Fernhill is not connected to stormwater. The water that we run through Fernhill is either clean wastewater from our forest river facility, or it's rainwater that comes into it. If you're at Fernhill and you look to the east, and there's the Dow's Marsh that's over there, that is fed by stormwater. So the water that is in Dow's Marsh is water that's come through the storm system and is going that way and into the Tualatin River. So there are.
So the lagoon closer to Fernhill is the one you're talking about?
Yes.
Because you're talking now about the ones in the far back.
Yes, in the far.
Oh.
So the lakes, Fernhill Lake, and then along Fernhill Road to Geiger Road. That's all part of the natural treatment system.
How deep is the lake?
Too deep. No, so there's some parts. So this is a really part. So as far as that testing and things that work and fail, so there's some spots that if there's open water and it's too deep for plants. So willows, things like that, trees will grow, they'll emerge through a few feet of water. But 2 feet of water, they're totally fine, they're happy. But if it gets to like 3-4 feet of deep of water, it's too much and they're not able to grow. And so there's actually last summer there was a pool of about 1.5 acres that was too deep. And so things weren't growing there. So in the summertime, in the fall, right, October after our permit ended, we drained that cell and then put in a whole bunch of dirt in there and raised that 50 feet, and then put water back in. So that way it replanted it. So we don't want to do that deep. The lake is a little bit deeper, and it's not more than like 6 feet deep. And we're actually there sometimes in the summer we're able to keep water at the bottom of the lake and then pull that into the treatment system to cool it down a little bit. So we can do that. But yeah, the rest of it, when you see the water out there, it is just as low, like maybe not more than 2 to 3 feet in any spot. Yeah.
How big is the pipe from Forest Grove to Hillsborough, and is when you have to use it, is it push or pull?
Mostly we use gravity most of the time. So we have 2 pipes. I believe they're 42 inches that are connecting between Forest Grove and the Hillsborough facility. And yeah, so most all the time we have about over 40 pump stations throughout the district. So most of the time when you think all our facilities are next to the river, they're in the lowest spot. So we're using gravity to pull it from your house down the pipe and to us as much as we can. There are some pump stations where we have to pump it up and then let gravity pull it out again. But yeah, so that is how there are. I think there's a pump station in between those two pipes. But yeah, we can manage 2 pipes until we can go both going the same way, or we can send clean water one way, dirty water the other way. Yeah, lots of options there. Yeah.
Seems to be an explosion of nutrients for health.
Yeah.
Or a national predator or eradication program or.
So nutrient are an invasive species. They were brought here by humans from South America. They were brought here. Were almost extinct in another country because they've been hunted so much. And so there's this pyramid scheme of selling the nutria. You create a farm and then sell their fur. And that their fur is not as good as beaver fur, and don't buy it. So a lot of them are released. They can have 21 young per year, and so they reproduce very quickly. And at Fernhill, we created some really good nutria habitat. They love that wetland habitat, those tanks that are out there. So Yeah, we don't have a lot of natural predators. There are maybe like a coyote, eagle, river otters, things like that. We do work on removing them from burnout. That is a priority of ours. And we're working on it.
Say no more.
That's it.
Enough said.
Keep up the good work.
Can you get involved with measuring the quality of the water in that way?
So I don't have the specific details on water quality as far as houseless contaminants next to water quality. So that's what we do. So we are testing, since our permit holds us to the quality of the river, we're testing throughout the watershed every single day. You might see our vans and like sprinkler vans and go out and we're taking water. We have a water quality lab and we're testing, we're busy all the time. Actually, our water quality lab is going to move in 2026 to our new research building, but at the north end of Fernhill. So the property that we purchased from TTM is over there. So that is coming in the future. So what's the rest of the question?
Pardon me?
What was the rest of the question?
The rest of the question, the quality of the water.
Oh, houseless contaminants.
Does
Yes.
it get measured and how do we know what's going on?
Yes. So it does. We're measuring on a regular basis. I don't know the specific details as far as the water quality measurements from around close by houseless contaminants. I have read in articles that around this region there was a perception that there would be an uptick in contaminants, but there was not found. I don't have hard specific data to know about that. That's something that we work on. We work really closely with the county and all kinds of regionals as far as so we have properties that have house contaminants. So it's definitely a priority for us. But I don't know specifics now. Yeah.
Just the last question. Are there rough skin newts in this treatment system? And tell us why that's your favorite.
There's not that many. So rusty newts are amazing. They are the most toxic animal in North America. Rough skin newts. So those little alligators have orange bellies on them?
Yeah.
Yeah. They will kill you easily. They have this tetrodotoxin, this neurotoxin that's in those little bumps in their skin. And one of the things, there was kind of this arms race between them and garter snakes. And so they became toxic. And specifically garter snake in the Willamette Valley. Like this doesn't have an outside, like you go up to Washington, they're not as toxic. But the garter snakes here became immune to that toxin. And so the rough skin newts became even more toxic. It is the major toxin in the amount of mice that it kills, and one newt can kill like over 2,000 mice. It's insane. So they're also the friendliest animal because they know you can't kill them. And so they're just like they're there's only running some of the so it's a toxin only half of it it's poisonous. So it's only if you ingest it in your mouth. So it's one of those things. Don't eat it, don't let it in. If you eat them, it's actually more dangerous for them because you have soap in your hands that can kind of burn to their skin, so they're amphibians and then more mixed to the skin. So when I take them up, I like rub my hands in the dirt and the nice dirty first before I wake up. And then hang out with them. They're great. So there's not a lot of them for them because they really like having that conifer for it. And we have a lot of deciduous trees, more of a floodplain right right now. So they're present, but there's not a huge number like well as nature conifer. They have conifer for us. And wetlands right next to it, there's a lot of them there. I'm guessing it's time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So check out our notes open. Come to us every day.
And there's a volunteer opportunity coming up. Oh, sorry.
Thanks.
Yep.
Got all these questions. Okay, February 11th. I sent out the link if you want to.
I'll do that. Yep.
February 11th, we're doing a volunteer, and we're going to help us remove weeds from our nutrient filter that has taken like a there. So it's has the weeds in it. It's in pea gravel, so it's really easy to pull these up. Check out the link coming for that, and yeah, thank you.
Good job.